So they said, in fact, you should get married. Why shouldn't we have a street wedding, like one of us marrying one of us? Yeah, and then there was a girl there called us Nathan. So, I mean, I liked her. So we started planning for our wedding. So we started planning for our wedding. We went to the Juakali, to Mutumba, Mama Soko, and everybody in Nakuru town mobilizing resources and raising funds. We are going to have a wedding, and people would contribute to us by them. To boda boda wakaofa, sisi tutaofa boda boda zetu kubeba bibi na bwana harusi. There was a short guest house somewhere. I won't mention the name because of the security purposes. They offered us honeymoon there and all that. So we planned our wedding, and we robbed a suit, we robbed a net, and then the wedding hula, it came. So on the day of the wedding, in the morning, the pastor who was officiating the wedding was my assistant. I was still in the street, so we had paid for him to go in a cyber and practice, how to conduct a wedding and all that. So he came in to officiate the wedding. But one of the things we had forgotten is rings. We forgot the rings. So the pastor, with his bravery, he told us we are going to use a razor blade, and so we are going to cut a part of our skin, and the girl cuts her part of her skin, then we join our blood, and that will be our seal for our marriage. And that's what we did. So some people murmured in the congregation because there are so many people who attended. It was in the stage, in a cruise stage. So there are so many people who had attended. You are Kali, Boda Boda, to a Soko, Nanini. Wow, but there's nothing they could do. After that, we went for lunch in the hotel. When we went for lunch in the hotel, hey, I saw a mzungu who had seen several times coming to the streets. I don't know what she wanted and all that. Then she joined us for lunch, and then there's this lady who came who was very angry, also joined us for lunch. So we are with for lunch there, and some few people for lunch there. And as we are having lunch, I was told to go and pay. So I was given a lot of money to go and pay for the food. On coming back, my wife is not there, and the mzungu is not there. Kumbe, this mzungu had come to adopt this girl. So she'd come severally there. So she was actually coming to adopt the girl. So that's how the girl got adopted. Then I got mad, and I was asking where my wife is, rioting around. This lady who was murmuring in the congregation was there, so she came to encourage me. She was there for me, and that's how she took me out of the streets. Fortunately, she had come from around my home area. Shout out to her. Her name is Mrs. McKenna. So she had come from my home area. She was running a boutique, so she'd come to buy clothes. Then she found this crowd, and she was like, hey, what's going on there? Then she found us doing that exchange of blood, which was a covenant per se, and she was very angry at it. So that's how actually she said she must approach me and talk to me. So that's how she took me back. We went back to Marmanet. She had come from a place called Ken. And so that's where we ended up staying with her and her family. I ended up living in her house. Her daughter was my age mate, so she took me to a school called St. Francis. I could catch up. Then they took me to another school called Old Jabet Primary School. I also couldn't catch up. At that time, I had been introduced to the church, the Presbyterian Church, PCM Armanet, shout out to them. And then they took me and they educated me at a school called Queen Esther. So when I went to Queen Esther, I struggled to catch up in terms of education because I'd left schooling at an early age, but by God's grace I was able to catch up. Just to cut the long story short, I finished my primary in 2013 and I gathered 372 marks. That saw me go to Nanyuki High School, where I did my high school. Then I finished there. I was still educated by the PCA Church through the help of an elder called John Ngera, whom I was staying with, the family I was still living with in Marmanet. Then I finished, and from there I started life in Nyeri, and I did nutrition at Outspan Medical College before I responded to God's call towards ministry. I was 14 when we were doing the wedding. But of course, much later we came and broke the covenant with the girl. She's in the United States right now. She's still a friend of mine. I mean, we got a way to reunite later, much later, and we were able to go to a pastor and we were able to break that covenant. So I'm not married. Yes.